Today, I woke up this morning and I was thinking about critical race theory. Critical race theory, there's a big debate going on right now about whether or not critical race theory should be taught in public schools or not. And I want to chime in on this debate and I want to link it back to Black wealth and Black economics and kind of give you a perspective on critical race theory and honestly why I truly don't care if critical race theory gets taught in public schools or not. I just don't care. And I'm going to explain why. We're going to break this down for you. Do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button, share, subscribe button. We're going to get started on the Black Financial Channel right now. Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the Black Financial Channel. That's theblackfinancialchannel.com. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins, and I'm your friendly neighborhood finance professor on the Black Financial Channel. We talk about Black economics, Black wealth, and the wealth building, family, and all the things that will make the Black community strong. We do that as much as 10 times a day. The only condition that I ask is not that you be Black. You don't have to be Black to be here. We don't hate anybody. But I ask you to be B1. B1 means we are Black first. B1 means that we put ourselves at the top of the priority list. We stop serving white folks first and then serving ourselves. You don't have to hate white people to say, I love myself. B1 also means that we understand we must be one to be successful. And B1 also means that we believe that within the next 50 years, children of the B1 community, your children, my children, our grandchildren are going to be ranked number one in the world when it comes to economics, wealth, ownership, and economic power. If you agree with this philosophy, if you are on board with this ideology, please put a hashtag B and the number one in the chat, hashtag B1. I just need you to put yourselves first and stop serving everybody else. It's really important. So here's what I want to try to talk about for a minute is critical race theory. And so Terry Cobb and Ashley and Tiff Walker and Jacqueline George and Jordan Crawford, I see you and I love you and I appreciate you. I've seen a big debate going on with critical race theory. How many of you, give me a yes or no, give me a yes or no, if you have some familiarity with critical race theory and the conversation around critical race theory. What I'm going to first do, actually, before I even break it down, is I believe you should understand the things you're talking about. And because believe me, I see people on the internet who do tons of videos, and I guess they're desperate for money, but they're usually talking about things they know nothing about because I don't know these people. But I guess that's the game. That's what happens. People speculate and make things up. But I'm going to read to you what critical race theory is. I just did a quick Google search on what critical race theory is, and I have my idea of it. I know that a lot of it originated with great people like Derek Bell and some others. In the 1970s, a lot of legal scholars, Derek Bell, Alan Freeman, Kimberly Crenshaw, Richard Delgado, Cheryl Harris, Charles R. Lawrence III. I'm reading names right here, Patricia J. Williams, etc. And so here's what this is a Wikipedia definition, so take it with a grain of salt, obviously. But what they were Roy L. Brooks in 1994 defined critical race theory as, quote, a collection of critical stances against the existing legal order from a race-based point of view. He was a co-founder of the theory. He defined it, Richard Delgado, sorry, a co-founder of the theory, defined it in 2017 as, quote, a collection of activists and scholars interested in studying and transforming the relationship among race, racism, and power. Um, and that's fine, right? You guys know that obviously I'm a critical race theorist in the sense that I understand. We know what white folks have done. We know what white folks have done. I told you guys I've been watching the John Singleton show Snowfall, and my wife, who's a full professor of social work, so she's a little bit to the left of me, but I appreciate ideas on the left of me, which is why I married a beautiful Black woman who happens to be a social worker, and I'm a finance professor, which I don't know if that makes me the capitalist bastard or not, but I'm not a pure capitalist because I know enough to know the flaws of capitalism. I'm reading up on Marxism. Karl Marx had a lot of great ideas, actually, and I encourage you to take a look at those ideas so you can sort of see the big picture. You can see the entire football field. But here's what I want to mention when it comes to critical race theory. Derek Bell, who was at Harvard Law School, was one of my great heroes. I just love this guy a lot, and I think that what he says is what he used to talk about and write about was great. Um, but with this debate about critical race theory, I think it's being just sort of happening the wrong way. This critical race theory conversation to me is a problem largely because it's a big distraction. It's a big distraction from what's really going on in America. Don't get me wrong. Again, I told you guys every day for 10 years, I've gotten on this channel and I have no problem talking about what white folks have and have not done. I've had no problem talking about how black people are being used by the existing systematic racist infrastructure. I've talked about both the Democrats and the Republicans using you as pawns for their own political agenda. I've talked about the racial wealth gap and why it was created from hundreds of years of people stealing your resources and creating laws against you, to put you in prison and things like that for no reason. I've joked, or not joked, but I've talked to you guys about the trauma of watching Snowfall with my wife, and both of us having grown up in the crack era. She grew up. My wife, just to give you background, she grew up in Gary, Indiana, which at that time was the murder capital of the earth. Why was Gary, Indiana, the murder capital of the world? Well, give me a yes or no if you think that that had anything to do with the drug trade. Give me a yes or no if you think that had anything to do with the CIA dropping crack bombs in the black community. Give me a yes or no if you've seen the results of what the government has done to black people by putting crack in our communities, where a big chunk of people were getting addicted to the crack and abandoning their kids. A big chunk of people were going to prison over the crack and forced to abandon their kids. And then a big chunk of people were being killed over the crack and then also abandoning their kids. So now you have a whole community where a vast majority of the children were abandoned by their parents. Well, that disrupts black families. That disrupts black relationships. Now the women don't trust the men because daddy wasn't there. 76% of the little black girls, they never even had a daddy in the house. They don't even know what it means to wake up near a man every day. Right? That's odd for them. And then 76% of the boys don't know what it means to be a man. They don't have any idea on what daddy would do in this situation because they never got a chance to watch daddy day in, day out, 10, 15 hours a day. They saw their daddy maybe once every 3 or 4 weeks, but that ain't the same as having daddy right there every single day. Give me a yes or no if you understand what I'm saying. When I talk like this, people think I'm crazy because I'm talking about a world that many of you are not familiar with. I'm talking about a world that you deserved that was taken away from you because of the very same systematic factors that critical race theorists talk about. So I don't doubt critical race theory on the merits in terms of talking about systematic racism. At the very least, getting beyond this false belief about what racism is. A lot of people think racism is when a white lady, cuts in front of you in line in the grocery store, or we think racism is when somebody calls you the N word. I think Michelle Obama told a racism story about how a white lady cut in front of her and her girls when they were in line for ice cream. That's not racism. That's not racism. No, racism is systematic. Racism is a set of rules, laws, structures, and protocols that put white people ahead of black people. I don't care if you cut in line in front of me at the grocery store. I don't care if you call me the N word. I don't care if you don't like me because I'm black. Just cut the goddamn check and let's get it on. Let's get on with this. Write me that reparations check. That'll be $15.3 trillion, please. Write me that reparations check. And you can call me every name you want because you know what? Let me tell you a little secret, black people. This is a secret they don't tell you. It's all about power. See, when you start winning, they're going to hate you even more. When you really getting what you deserve, they're going to get madder at you. When you step in and say, do right by me, you better do right by me or I'm not voting for you. Oh, they're going to call you every name in the book. Oh, the Democrats were calling Ice Cube every name in the book. They were mad as hell at him because they said, wait a minute, you mean you asking black people to get something for their vote? You blankety blank, MFing son of a blobbity blop. You don't think they called him all kinds of names when he was in there demanding what the black community deserves? Hell yeah. Just know when you start winning, you're gonna have more haters than you ever imagined in your life. And if you can't stand the heat, then you need to stay up at the kitchen. Only winners are allowed in the kitchen. Only people who can stand the heat are allowed in the kitchen. Only tough people are allowed in the kitchen. Because if you are a sensitive little butterfly that's been trained to believe that you need white people to love you in order for you to feel successful, then the struggle really ain't for you. Power is really not designed for you. Black power is just probably not your thing. You probably want to go over to the minstrel show. Become a rapper. Just be like one of those rappers that can't spell their mama's name and throws all their money away and stays high on dope all the time. They'll love you for that. They'll pay you big money for that. Or go be a comedian that tells like jokes and stuff, and they're like that because you're not a threat. Then you make them laugh, right? Go do something. Go just run up behind them and kind of do what they tell you. And then that way you'll be more comfortable because they'll love you. Then they'll tell you all kinds of, you know what you should do? You should probably go and become a high ranking official in the Democratic Party. Because you know what they'll do? They'll do for you exactly what they did for Stacey Abrams. They put Stacey Abrams on the cover of a magazine. Anybody see that picture where she was on the cover of some magazine, Vogue or something? And they're preparing her to look very gubernatorial or presidential even, right? They had her looking very strong and masculine. Like she looked like she would really like, she looked like a strong king on the cover of that magazine, looking real big, buff and strong and standing up and chin up. And just go look it up. Look at, I forgot what the magazine cover was, but they'll do that for you, right? If you carry water for white people, you will always have a job. If you tell them what they want to hear, you will always have money in your pocket. If you do what they say, they will always say wonderful things about you. They will never say a negative thing about you. They will have your back. Here's where I want you to process this a little bit in terms of what I'm saying. And this is for all the Mark Lamont Hill types of the world who carry water for the white liberals and do very well because of that. I remember seeing Mark getting those $25,000 a week speak, 25, make it not 25, excuse me, not per, doing 3 or 4 speaking engagements per week, making $20,000 to $25,000 per engagement. I remember seeing that big money, and I said, "Damn, it's really lucrative to be down with white folks. Man, I wish white people liked me that much." I remember those days. I remember those days. And then I had to go do the hard work and learn how to build independent Black wealth and power, which led me to be even more disliked by white folks, which actually led me to be disliked by some of our poison-minded Black folks. But guess what? I've actually made a lot more money than Mark Lamont Hill, and I have a whole lot more power because I'm free and independent to do and say whatever I want to say. So I'm talking about the real power in America. I'm not talking about false power. I'm not talking about the illusion of power that you get when you have carried water and played ball and, and lined yourselves in what I call a political gang affiliated warfare that ain't got nothing to do with you as a Black person. It ain't got nothing to do with you Black folks, but we the first ones to line up and be good soldiers for everybody else. We good soldiers for everybody except ourselves. And I want to talk to you and help you understand why that's not the right strategy, why that's the strategy that's going to cause you to lose. Do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button, hit the thumbs up, share, subscribe button if you haven't done it yet. Please do that. Also, just so you know, in the Black Business School, we have financial workbooks and flashcards for kids. So if you want your kids to learn about wealth, we created flashcards and workbooks by Black educators. So feel free to go take a look at everything we've got in place if that'll help you and your family. We believe Black people should educate their own children, which actually leads to my next point. So the reason I don't care if critical race theory is taught in school is because of this. The number one teacher in the lives of my children is not Sally J. Wilson, who came from the suburbs, who doesn't understand their experience or understand their struggle or know what it's like to be a Black man or a Black woman. The number one educator in the lives of my children in my household is Dr. Boyce Watkins and Dr. Alicia Watkins. We are the number one educators of our kids. Now, mind you, I'll admit we have an advantage. We both have PhDs, and these are not fake PhDs. These are not the PhDs you get on the weekends in the 6-week summer program. No, these were PhDs where we required 5 years of continuous hazing and grinding and pain and agony to get through. When I finished my PhD in 2002, I was the only African American on the planet to get a PhD in finance that year. There was no other Black person on the earth that got a PhD in finance that year, and it was traumatic. Believe me. Alicia, when she finished her PhD program, 5 Black students started her program with her in Florida State. 4 of them did not finish. She was the only one who made it through, and she had a baby while she was in her program. So she met Dr. Claude Anderson's wife, and they both actually got their PhDs from Florida State. So shout out to the smart Black women that are out here. Black men that want to be successful, find you a smart Black woman and work with her. She makes an excellent teammate because she's tough. She knows how to fight through things most of the time. Alicia's a very tough woman. But with that being said, we teach our kids. There's no greater teacher of a child than the mother. I talked to a young mother yesterday, and I said, she had 3 sons. I said, look, your son, in order for your sons to be the men that they are meant to be, you are going to have to give them special education. She said, what do you mean by that? I said, special education. I'm not talking about special education you get in school. I'm not talking about the special education where they dump all the Black boys in one classroom and then give them a bunch of drugs so that they'll sit still. I'm not talking about special education where your son ain't going to learn how to read till he's 18 years old. I'm talking about the special education that can only come from a Black mother who loves her child. I'm talking about the special education my mama gave me. When I was a kid, the teachers used to tell my mother, this is those public schools where the whole critical race theory debate is kind of happening right now. So just understand, I'm sticking to the context. I promise you, we're getting to the point here. So in the public school, I remember they would tell my mother, well, Boyce won't sit still. Boyce won't act right. We have to keep putting Boyce in detention because Boyce is misbehaved and Boyce is this and Boyce is that. Boyce ain't as smart as the other kids. They used to tell my mother all these things, and my mother said, no, 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 no. She said, I know my child better than you know my child. And no, you're not going to put my child on anybody's medication ever, because I do not want my child to grow up and become a drug addict. And then my mother said, I don't care what all your fancy charts tell you. I know you say you're an expert. You might be an expert on those children, but you're not an expert on my child. The leading expert on my child is me, because you did not give birth to this human being that's in front of you. You did not spend 100,000 hours talking to this child and understanding how this child's brain works. You did not sit with this baby when he was sick. You don't know this child. I'm the expert on the child. So I'm not consulting with you about what my child's potential is. You have to consult with me. Do you follow what I'm saying? Do you follow what I'm saying? You see, if you understand that child better than anybody else, the teacher's not the expert on your child. You're the expert on that child. The teacher shouldn't be the primary educator of that child. You are the primary educator of that child. And so effectively in these public school systems, this place where they're talking about teaching critical race theory and all that stuff, I don't worry about whether they're teaching critical race theory at school with my kids, because we teach them critical race theory at home. They come home and they come back with some nonsense. Well, Christopher Columbus discovered America, and it's Columbus Day. No, that's not true. Let's tell you what really happened. Let me tell you how Africans came to America 1,000 years before white people did. Well, Billy was telling me that all the pronouns are blah 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 blah, and he, them, and they, and should, and blah blah blah. Yeah, that's one perspective, but yes, we do. But we believe in the structured Black family with a mother, one father, and the children, and blah 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 blah. And let me tell you about the crack era, where the CIA destroyed Black families, and why most of your friends don't have a daddy in the house, right? And come back, George Washington did the blah 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 blah. Yeah, okay, yeah, I get that. But you do know that George Washington raped more women than Bill Cosby ever could. You do know that, right? But the difference is that they're just seeking to destroy Bill Cosby's legacy, as if he never did anything good for anybody. But George Washington is supposedly their hero, even though he raped slaves and murdered Black people for a living. But okay, sure. So let's go downstairs and we want you to watch the Cosby Show now, because that's how we're going to partially educate you on what a strong, stable family looks like, right? Do you follow what I'm saying? Give me a yes or no if you follow what I'm saying. The education of your children is something that you should be doing every single day. And you need to stop believing that the education of your kids, your most precious commodities, should be in the hands of people who hate them. I don't care what they're teaching at that school. They're probably going to do it wrong. And one of the problems that Black people have is that when you get into these critical race theory conversations, it doesn't become a real conversation about systematic racism. If you want to teach critical race theory, you know how you can teach critical race theory to your kids? I'm going to give you in 10 seconds how you can teach critical race theory to your kids. You want to know the answer? You want to know how you can give your kids the full education on critical race theory? Give me a yes or no if you want me to tell you. I'm going to tell you a little secret. It'll take me 10 seconds to say this. Y'all ready? Okay. If you want to teach critical race theory to your kids, have them go read Black Labor, White Wealth with Dr. Claude Anderson, where he explains all the systems, rules, laws, and protocols put in place in America to make sure that your ass stayed out of the circle of power. Everything he breaks it down to the price of a slave in 1821, and how that differed from the price of a slave in 1779, and how that was impacted by the ebbs and flows of the cotton industry. He breaks all that down. But yet these same people who talk about advocating for critical race theory, these same liberals that are supposed to be your friends, are telling you, oh, well, but we're not going to pay reparations. We're going to go study reparations. We need 7 years to decide if we've ever done anything wrong to Black people, to just make sure that we might owe y'all something. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? So it's the same liberals, the same Democrats or whatever, that got us lined up, fighting these little paper battles that could be resolved in about 10 seconds of common sense, are the same ones who won't write you a check and won't shift the economic power in your hands. Do you understand? Give me a yes in the chat if you get what I'm saying, please. Do you understand that the reason they keep you caught up in these superficial battles, these social battles, is because they don't want you thinking about the economics. They don't want you thinking about the fact that when Alicia and I went through on a cruise tour through downtown Chicago, we saw about probably 300 built skyscraper buildings that had to have been worth 1, 5, 10, even $20 billion each. And I said, babe, can you imagine if there was a law passed that forced them to give black people in Chicago control over even 20 or 30 of these multi-billion-dollar buildings and all the revenue that comes with that? Can you imagine what would happen? You mean white people sitting on all this wealth and all this power, and they got y'all fighting over nonsense. They got y'all fighting over everything but the money. They'll talk to you about everything but the money. They're, well, don't look over here. The money's for grown folks. We want you to look over here at the kiddie table. They got you eating, you go to a restaurant and they got the good menu for the adults. That's where they got the lobster, with the steak, the filet mignon, and and all this other stuff, right? The truffles